In this video, we'll talk about Gradebook Setup. So if we go to Grades and we look at the grader report, how this appears and how it manages the grades is controlled through Gradebook Setup. So here in Gradebook Setup, we see we have a bunch of different grade types. This one is a grade item. That is, it is not connected to an activity within As You Learn. It's just basically a placeholder in the gradebook to enter grades for something that you may be doing face-to-face or turning in a physical object. Those are added here as a grade item. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Additionally, we have activities that generate a gradebook column automatically, such as assignments, forums, attendance, quizzes. Those type of things are generating a grade based on the activity, and when you build those activities, you have some options within those about how they appear in the gradebook and what kind of grades they cover. Inside of this, if we want to add a grade item, that is a placeholder column that we can just place grades in, we're going to go to grade item, and let's say this is a paper that the students are physically going to turn in to me. I'm going to grade and give back. I'm going to name that item. I'm going to give it a grade type. I highly recommend staying away from scales. If you have an activity or something that you really are going to go, yes, you did it, no, you didn't, still give it a point value and just give them the top of the point value. Don't do the scales. They do not average the way you think they average, so that's usually a bad idea. Stick with value. We're going to give the item a grade max. So if you're using points, this can be above 100 and all the way up. The same if you're doing simple weighted mean. You can change this to reflect what you want it to be weighted within the course. If you have categories, you can go ahead and set the category here. You can also allow it to be extra credit. Depending on your aggregation type, the way that you're averaging or manipulating the grades to get a final grade, extra credit can be available or not. If it is available, checking this box makes this an extra credit. And that means it won't be, for instance, on averaging, it won't be figured into the max for the course. Extra credit grades are indicated by this little plus sign after it. So I actually have 3 extra credit grades within this. Additionally to grade items, we can make a category. A category is a collection of items. So this is typically used for things like my quizzes for the class are going to be worth 20% of the grade. Or I'm going to take the total point value of 6 journals and make those part of the grade. I need to group those items together so that they can be averaged or added or something together, and then that grade be used as part of the grade book. So I need to add a category, and so let's call this papers. So I'm going to use all of those papers together. Just like with the main portion of the class, I can pick an aggregation method. So we have multiples to choose from. Mean of grades just takes an average across the different grades within this category. Weighted mean takes an average across but lets you weight them differently, so you can actually assign a weight value. Simple weighted mean takes an average but takes in the highest point value of each item into account and adjust those accordingly. You can just pick the highest grade out of a category. Natural is if you're using points. You're just summing the points up, adding those points together would be natural. So I'm going to do just mean of grade. Exclude empty grades is a tricky one. Do you want, as you learn, when it calculates the grade, if it doesn't see a grade for it, do you want it to count as a 0 or nothing at all? So that is this setting. If you exclude empty grades, for instance, if I have 4 grades and they're 100 points each, and so each one would be a 25%. If I exclude empty grades when I take the first quiz worth 100 points out of 4, and I make a 90, my grade average for those would be a 90. If I include empty grades, when I take that first quiz, if I make 100 on it, because there are 4 of them being averaged, my grade will be a 25. That can really confuse students at the beginning of the semester and scare them, because it's taking future grades and giving them the value of 0. So typically what I do is I exclude empty grades until the last week or couple of weeks of the course, and then I switch that over. If you are giving zeros, you go back and use the bulk grade insert and turn empty grades into zeros. You can leave this as exclude empty grades and it'll look just fine. We can also drop the lowest, and if you pick this or show more here, you can actually keep the highest number of grades out, or you can drop the lowest. Highest is very convenient if you are doing, say, journals, and you're not sure if you're going to do 6 journals or 10 journals, but you want to keep the highest 5 of those. You can give as many as you want, and it'll auto adjust for that. If you drop the lowest, be aware, if I'm going to give 4 grades and I drop the lowest 2, the first 2 grades given will be dropped. So the student does the first 2 journals, their grade is still 0 because it's dropping the first 2. Keep highest, we'll get away from that. Category total, grade type, again, maximum grade, and you can set those for individuals. So we're going to save that. And so now I have this other grade for papers, and I can start moving into that category. And let's say assignment 1 is also a paper, and I'm going to bring that under there. Notice these 2 here are indented. They are part of this category. This one, even though it's lower, is not indented. It is not part of that category. So when I hit Save Changes, I'm going to go into Grader Report. And so now I have not only my grades here, but I also have this subcategory called Papers, and it's averaging those grades excluding empty grades here. So that's how this is being generated. I can then use this total as part of the class. Also, once you have categories, note this little minus sign after the category name. If I click on that, the first click will collapse the category and just show me totals. I find this very convenient if I have, say, quizzes inside of EduLearn in a category. I don't need to see the individual quiz grades. I can go into the quiz activity and see those there. I just need to see kind of the running total. I'll collapse that down. If I click it again, I will see just the individual assignments, no category total. So these are still being totaled, but I'm not displaying it. I click it once more, and I will get the total and the activities within it. And so I can rotate between those 3. Additionally, if I want to change the aggregation for the entire course, that is back to Gradebook Setup, and we're going to click here under the edit for the entire course, and that is where we change the aggregation. So the category total and course total work the same. Everything works the same here. I can drop, I can keep the highest, I can change the aggregation, I can exclude empty grades. This just happens to be the category total for the entire course, not the subcategories that we created.